Welcome to part 11 of the Great Depression and the New Deal. Now we're going to talk about the Supreme Court and the legacy of the New Deal. Probably the most powerful of the opponents to New Deal policies was the United States Supreme Court. They definitely were a spur in Roosevelt's saddle. Matter of fact, he would refer to the Supreme Court justices as those 9 old men, right? You had several of these men were over 70 years old, and he was just disgusted with the fact that how they would constantly overturn some of these New Deal programs. Now, what you had 9 members of the Supreme Court, okay? 5 of them tended to be pretty anti-New Deal. 3 of them were pro-New Deal, and 1 of them was kind of a swing voter, right? Depended on which New Deal policy. So as a result, New Deal programs were often at risk to the Supreme Court. For example, in January of 1935, the National Industrial Recovery Act and the National Recovery Act were both overturned by the Supreme Court, and they both went away. May of 1935, the Railroad Pension Act, which provided retirement to railroad workers, was overturned. Also in that month, the Fraser-Lemke Farm Bankruptcy Act, which protected farmers from bankruptcy, was overturned by the Supreme Court. January of 36, the Agricultural Adjustment Act was overturned. And in May of 1936, the Guthrie-Coal Act, which again provided relief to coal miners, was also overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court. Roosevelt felt like he needed to do something, especially once he has Social Security proposed and turned into the Social Security Act, because he knows that the Supreme Court is probably going to turn that over, and that's also going to end in the dustbin of history. So he comes up with an idea to pack the courts. He wants to get Congress to allow him to appoint an assistant Supreme Court justice for every judge who's over 70 years of age. This would allow him to appoint 6 new Supreme Court justices. This is how he presented it to Congress. He said, "A part of the problem of obtaining a sufficient number of judges to dispose of cases is the capacity of the judges themselves. This brings forward the question of aged or infirm judges, a subject of delicacy and yet one which requires frank discussion. In exceptional cases, of course, judges like other men retain to an advanced age full mental and physical vigor. Those not fortunate are often unable to perceive their own infirmities. A lower mental or physical vigor leads men to avoid examining the examination of complicated and changed conditions. Little by little, new facts become blurred through old glasses fitted, as it were, for the needs of another generation. Older men, assuming the scene is the same as it was in the past, cease to explore or inquire into the present or the future." You see what he's saying here? He says, we have these judges in the Supreme Court and in other federal court positions, and they're just old and senile. And you should allow me to appoint judges to help them, right? Quite the slap in the face, right? But if he gets this pushed through, it'll give him 6 new Supreme Court justices and 44 federal judges. And of course, he's going to select all pro-New Deal. That would, in the Supreme Court, give him 9 pro-New Deal, 5 anti-New Deal, and the 1 swing voter. Now, Congress sees right through this. They're going to vote this down. They're basically going to say, hey, you're trying to pack the courts, all right? But FDR is a pretty good political operator. He realizes he's been caught, and so his response to that is like, wow, I had not thought of it that way. Thanks for pointing that out. You're right. That was a bad idea. He knew full well what he was doing. He just, like I said, he's a really shrewd political operator. And so he knew, once he knew he was caught, he knew he should back down. Now, there's a long legacy with the New Deal. And there's, and some of it's dropped into myth and others and stuff, but there's some important things you need to take out of this. What the New Deal did and what the New Deal did not do. Let's start with what it did not do. The New Deal did not end the Great Depression. As I mentioned, by 1935, unemployment's going back up. These different programs had an effect, but it did not end the Great Depression. This Great Depression is so complicated and so deep, it is going to take a far larger and more complicated thing to end it. It's going to be called World War II. The change of the industrial landscape brought about by another global conflict, a conflict that's going to cost the lives of 50 million people, is what it's going to take to spur the global economy out of this deep depression. It did not address civil rights. Roosevelt only reacted on civil rights. He never typically did things on civil rights unless he was pushed into a corner, right? For example, in Texas, the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC, there were two branches in Dallas. One were for whites and one was for colored. Again, use the terminology of the day, right? Many New Deal programs were segregated. One of the few examples in Texas was the National Youth Administration that was administered by Lyndon Johnson, who was one of the few that we'll see as we move forward, was one of the few Democrats of this time period that very early on began to at least support and then eventually embrace the civil rights movement. It did not promote equality for women. As a matter of fact, it really did nothing towards that, right? Remember, the CCC, for example, was only for single men. And finally, despite what some opponents or critics of FDR say, it did not bring about socialism. FDR was not trying to instill socialism in America. He was trying to save capitalism. So, what did the New Deal do then? Here is what the New Deal did do. It abolished child labor through the Wagner Act, initially the National Recovery Administration, but then through the Wagner Act. The child labor laws that we see on the books today and how it's administered is very similar to what was established during the New Deal. Populists had tried to address child labor and made no progress. Progressives had tried to address child labor and made minor inroads. But the New Deal will finally abolish child labor in the United States. It empowered organized labor, gave them the right to form, to unionize, to collective bargain. A power which, to a limited degree, will be taken back away during World War II by FDR. But that's a different topic. And it established welfare capitalism. Welfare capitalism, a system in which the government in a capitalistic society is responsible for protecting its citizenry from bankruptcy, from hunger, from destitution, from unemployment. The days of laissez-faire presidencies are completely over. You can never have an executive like that again as a result of the establishment of welfare capitalism. And like I said, we still live under a welfare capitalistic system today.